Cynicism is just another form of cowardice. For our sergeant are not interested in a midlife crisis. We were to do our freaking work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the Spotlight Podcast, Success Stories for Veterans, where it is our job to break down and analyze titans in both the military and civilian communities so you can discover their tactics, their mindset, and their systems so that you can apply that to your life. Those titans range from New York Times bestselling authors to former heads of state to other divergent thinkers out there who are dominating their field by challenging conventional wisdom. And today we have Eric Wright. And Eric can only be described in my mind as electric dynamite. I mean, this guy has a magnetic personality, and he's leveraged that personality to help over 800 veterans get into project management careers with over 83 million in cumulative starting salaries. So how does he do that? Listen and find out.
Like, dude, the whole thing is busted.
Yes, exactly. So how do you get past all that? Well, that, Eric, is why
Listen,
you are
guys
here.
like you.
Yeah. So let's just roll into it, man. You know, for those of you of our audience who might not be aware of Eric Wright, you know, give us a little bit of your background. People call you Doc. What else?
Yeah, so that's a crazy story in of itself. People all the time are like, dude, how do you get out in 1994 as a 20-something-year-old kid, right? Because I needed many more years of seasoning and mentorship by folks. But anyway, so how do you go from there to a PhD in finance, right? Well, in between was a lot of project management. And I figured out quickly, I'm not the smartest guy in the audience, but I figured out quickly, if executives talk in terms of time and money, and I need them to allow me time and give me money to keep my projects on track and keep myself employed, if I learn to think like them and talk like them about stuff they care about, I bet they keep funding my projects. So that's how I got there. So, and then the military, anybody with doctor in their title, medical or otherwise, right? Yeah. It just becomes Doc. So my mom named me Eric. Civilians call me Eric. A lot of folks in the military community and the transition community call me Doc. But Navy first back in the Gulf, Army Guard second post 9/11, Operation Noble Eagle. And then in between there, man, lots of wandering around in a job desert, man, talking leadership and naval nuclear propulsion and all the stuff that's completely meaningless to a hiring manager that's got 6 seconds to look at your resume and decide whether you're even worth an interview or not. And oh, by the way, they don't even have the courtesy to call you back and tell you you're not worth an interview and tell you why not, because they don't want sued, right? So you wander around, hey, I've sent out 3,000 resumes. Hey, it's been 9 months. I wonder how come nobody's calling me. Because you don't bring them any value. So that's one of the core things I always talk about with vets, man, is, hey, look, bro, just like Navy, just like Army, just like Air Force, they've got doctrine. CIVDIV, the civilian division, the civilian workforce has a doctrine. Mm-hmm. If you don't know it and you don't talk like that, and you don't talk about it, you lose. So,
and that's a great point that you bring up. How do you go about, like, what are the literal steps to take to start immersing yourself into that doctrine so that you can understand it?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you the 50,000-foot flyover first. I'm going to rankle anybody that listens to your podcast that believes in the conventional thinking. I am a contrarian just by nature, right? Yeah. Like, hey, why do we do it like that? If that's not working, like, can we like change the way we do it and get some good results here? Like, if we're in control, why can't we just change it, right? So anyway, one of the things that you guys talk about at the Zen Veteran, I absolutely love, man. And in fact, I'll give you credit. You actually articulate it better than I do in the written word. But it's, people that say, oh, veterans, you got to take an entry-level job. You got to walk in the front door. You got to whatever. No, you don't. Like, now, if you're going to walk in there and be the CEO, you don't get to jump the line in front of all the cats that have spent 15 years developing context that get to be a CEO. It's just not fair. So you got to develop the new context. How do you develop the new context? I don't know. Think about your last duty station. How many of us, Carson, had this billet? I'm a hull technician and I'm the safety controls officer. Oh, by the way, now you're the training petty officer. I don't know how to do that, senior chief. You will in 3 weeks when you get back from school. Pack your stuff. What? or, hey, here's the manual, dude. And so you sit on this billet for 18 months, 24 months, whatever, or I show up to be, I don't know, the weapons guy, and I'm also the mess safety officer, like whatever. We do that all the time. Other duties is assigned. A lot of times you've got a lot of experience and meaningful experience, deep experience in those things. So here's how I tell vets to do it. Sit down with a piece of paper, 8.5, 11 by piece of paper, Venn diagram. Bubble on the left, bubble on the right, do a little overlap in the middle. Here's what I didn't like about my service. Here's what I loved about my service. Love on the left, didn't love on the right. You're going to make a list. In between those two bookends is where you could make a living at your next gig as a civilian. You could. Here's another trick. Whatever you do next doesn't have to be the thing you're going to do last. The reality is the average civilian changes careers 4 times, Carson, career fields 4 times. They change jobs 7 times. Well, that's counter to most of our integrity and commitment and loyalty and all the things we've ever been raised to do. What, jump ship? You're not jumping ship, man. Think of free agency. They throw money at you, you go play for the next team. And every team's trying to win a ring. So they'll just keep throwing money at you. If that's how the system works, then just get used to it. You don't have to like it. Just get used to it and change jobs every 2 or 3 years. But my point is let's say that you sit down with your VIN list, okay? Mm-hmm. Like me, a VIN list. If I would have done this, I was a welder coming out. What did I love? I loved getting stuff done. I loved people. I loved getting patted on the back because I was a success and my people were a success. I hated doing operational roles year after year after year after year, or doing the same thing. Hey, open the spreadsheet, do this thing, put in the data, close the spreadsheet, do that every Thursday. Man, I got the attention span of a 5-year-old, brother. That's not cutting it. So I would have been able to do my left-right boundaries and said, oh, project management. Yeah. The typical business project is, 8 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. You accomplish objectives that you get recognized for because they make the place better, more profitable, whatever, through small, high-performing teams. I would have said, no kidding, project management. I think I'm going to do that. Instead, I wandered around for 12 years until I became an accountant at DOD, and my boss said, hey, dude, you're kind of way too gregarious and loud and stuff to be an accountant. You're kind of mediocre. So I'm going to put you on the road and go do this project. Dude, Carson, I went and did projects. I loved it. Why? Small, high-performing teams, busting objectives, getting recognition, bang, making the place better than when we found it. I felt like I was in uniform again, right? Oh, and by the way, it pays really stupid well, dude. So I became a project manager.
There you go. So talk to me a little bit about, before you have the realization, tell me about wandering through the desert for 12 years, bouncing around. What was that like? What was going through your head?
Oh, brother. So now you got to remember, so I don't mean to be disparaging. You got to remember, this is 1994, right? This is 2003, my second time coming out of service. There's no such thing as LinkedIn, not even learn how to use LinkedIn well. Yeah. It doesn't even exist yet. Al Gore is still creating the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Vice President Al Gore, whatever. I want to be respectful. But you know what I mean? So do a resume was about it, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't have, a Word document. Here's a Word template. We didn't even know what templates were, right? Hey, do a resume. Okay, get your typewriter out. Whatever. So, yeah, dude, I talked in terms of leadership and followership, the cult we were raised in, right? I didn't talk in here's the CIVDIV doctrine real quick. Managers in organizations do 4 things functionally. They plan what it is they're going to do: grow a division, shut down a division, enter a new marketplace, enter a new state, increase our stock price, whatever they decide to do, the objective. They then come up with the performance standards as part of the planning function. Here's how we'll know when we've done it, and we'll keep doing it until we do it. Number 2, they go organize the resources. They hustle all the resources necessary to resource the plan that they've come up with. They then lead the people, the human resources, in execution of the plan. Number 4, they control the plan. Corrective actions if performance doesn't match plan. Okay?
Yeah.
Here's the reality, brother. When you walk in and say, hey, I lead this, lead that, lead this, get out of the way, I'll lead your next thing, the civilian just heard that you only know how to do 1, of 4 things, and they're going to send you a letter that says, hey, we found somebody more qualified, or you're not qualified, when the reality is there's not a military veteran I've ever met, brother, that's not one of the most ingenious MacGyver-like dudes or gals hustling resources.
Yeah.
Taking corrective action, coaching, building teams, like getting the objective done or dying trying. Dude, but when we only talk in leadership, the civilian only heard one of 4 functions. They really can't hire us because we don't bring them the full value. So here's what you do. Now that you know the CIVDIV, with that as your context, so in your interviews, your resumes, your LinkedIn profiles, make sure you talk about your deep, wide experience in all 4 functions. Now, so project management, back to my personal example to show you how to use the Venn diagram to figure this all out. Project management has a field manual called the Project Management Body of Knowledge. In that field manual, they give you the toolbox, the TTP, that you're going to use to run projects and the language to talk about it. So now I could talk about naval nuclear propulsion. I could talk about setting up a SAT antenna on a mountaintop somewhere. I could talk about all that stuff that's uniquely military because there's no nuclear submarines in the civilian fleet, none. Uniquely military. And I could talk about it in terms of scope and communications management and risk management and resource management. Dude, now my entire time in uniform meant something. Oh, this guy's a project manager. I know how much to pay him. I know how to give him a raise. I know what to expect from him. I know what he's talking about when he's bumping his gums. And then you go in there and you bust it out with all the stuff that makes you a veteran, that makes you intangible, that makes you Peter Parker, Spider-Man in a sea full of average civilians. Yeah. You go in there and crush it, dude. You crush it. And even a nuclear welder can go from, dude, when I found project management, Carson, I was coming out of the job desert. I was lean. I was hungry. I was sunburned. I was blistered. Life sucked. I've got 6 degrees. I've got a wheelbarrow full of student loan debt because I did everything they said in TAPS. Go to school, get a degree, blah, 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 get certifications. Man, I had like 8 of those, dude. I get project management. I start talking about who I am, what I can do, how it brings value to the organization in terms of project management. I go from GS7 to GS13, 14 promotable in 7 years flat at DOD. Project management, shoom, like that. 6 digits ever since, brother. I'm not saying that to brag. What I'm saying is I can read a blueprint and put 2 pieces of metal together. If I can figure it out, figure it out. Find something that you think you want to do with the Venn diagram. Find a credential that the industry respects. Talk in terms of those requirements in that language about your military experience. You look like them now and sound like them. An HR professional, a cybersecurity professional, a project management professional. I'm not telling you to hide you're a veteran. I'm telling you to make a connection with them first. And then at the company barbecue, when you're having a beer, you can tell them a war story.
Yeah, and they'll be open to hearing it. That's been my experience with it. So let's talk about, so you've talked about how to identify the market and speak the lingo and then frame your perspective. But one of the challenges a lot of veterans that I work with run into is who not to listen to, right? How do you go about, what's your litmus test for determining if somebody's a bullshitter or somebody that is contrarian and to conventional wisdom? How do you find that out?
Well, so this is a non-answer to your question, but the first thing I would say is to anybody listening, they probably don't need to hear this, but I'm going to say it so it's on the record. Follow Zen Veteran. Follow more people and more organizations that believe in the power of hope and a plan of action and a story. Recreate an end state. People like people that are successful. And people do not associate with people that are weak and timid and will get the tribe killed. You're going to be a part of the tribe because you can help us hunt and gather and defend ourselves against T-Rexes and stuff, man. Right? Like you get the tribe if you're strong and you're going to help and you're going to contribute. If you're going to freeload, there's other tribes down the street, right? It's not a good or a bad thing. I'm not indicting people who want to mail it in. Just go to one of the tribes where you can mail it in, right? So what I would tell you is think about when somebody tells you something, what's their motive? What's their play? Hey, get your resume in order. Sweet. Hey, get your free resume in order. And oh, by the way, if anybody charges you for a resume, they're Satan. They're sons of Satan. Stay away from them, right? Well, wait a minute. Why? Basic business fact here for your listeners. And I don't mean to be condescending. I'm just putting it on record because a lot of us never got basic business in infantry or nuclear propulsion or wherever we were working. Okay. The fundamentals are this: risk and reward. If I give up something of value, I'm putting that valued asset at risk.
Yeah.
The reward is in proportion to the risk I take. So if I put no skin in the game, there really is no risk and there's no reward. And if it does return something greater than what I spent, which was nothing, I don't value it because I have to bust my tail for it, right? Oh, and that feeds the broken veteran stand by in the line and let people come by and hand you out stuff too, by the way, which is one of the most detrimental things we can do to each other.
Yes.
You might have challenges. I've got challenges, right? Hey, man, I can either overcome them and get out of my head and go solve them and help other veterans solve theirs. That's what's really helped me. Help other vets solve their problems. They become successful, and you get to stand back and say, cool. Whether you ever get any credit for it or not, that's not what matters. Stay out of your own head. That's a dark place to be, man. That's a real dark place.
Yeah, you get into that existential crisis. Who am I?
Oh, yeah. Dude, the only reason I'm here, dude, is I was raised Christian and I'm a coward. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
So let's talk then, or continue on if you had more to say on that.
No. So real quick, the contrarian, what's their motive? For example, I help military veterans achieve meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Hey, Eric, what's in that for you? Your success. Because if you're successful, you'll tell more veterans and they'll come get me and my team's help. I literally live and die on your success. And back to the LLC. Limited liability company or an incorporated company simply means I generate dollars through my activities. Nonprofit organization means I generate donations through my activities.
Yes.
One is I have to ask and get a handout. One is I go find it and hustle. The only way I live if I'm an LLC is by bringing the marketplace value and they vote with their dollars. If my goods and services suck, nobody buys my stuff, I go find something else to do for a living. And so let's bring this to transition and then I'll get off the soapbox.
No, I think we should stay on this nonprofit versus LLC soapbox for a bit. I had an argument with somebody 2 days ago about that very thing.
Yeah, Carson. So to your question, like, hey, Doc, how do you know who to listen to? Think about what is the motive of them telling you that, right? Hey, get a free resume. Hey, you got to take an entry-level job. Hey, well, do you help veterans get entry-level jobs? Do you provide services that you can give to vets after they get a resume or whatever? So I don't want to make this, I believe in karma. I believe in control your own actions, do what you do, let everybody else do what they do. The only problem that chafes my hide is when I feel to my soul that you're getting bad information. Hey, you're going to have to accept $20,000 less in salary. And you're going to have to take an entry-level job. No, you're not.
Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Spotlight Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to ask you who you think should be interviewed on the show. Who do you think is out there that's just absolutely crushing it that the veteran population needs to hear from? That's what we want to hear from you. Send us your suggestions to spotlight@thezenveteran.com. That's SPOTLIGHT @thezenveteran.com. Thanks again for listening.